What's up, everybody? Happy Saturday. Can't believe I said that, but it actually seems worthy. Today is actually a nice day. It's actually warm. We are once again live with a podcast, so welcome to the Mel Show Podcast. Of course, this is the official Mel Show Podcast. This week we are covering the topic of getting started with model building, and this is a topic I know quite a bit about. Now, I'm going to start this by just giving you a little bit of my history and hobbies. I got into miniature model building about 15 years ago. I started building Warhammer miniatures and I started building War Machine miniatures as a way to kind of de stress at the end of the night. Didn't take a long time to glue them. What I really enjoyed was the painting of the models. I found that watching, like either watching a movie or just throwing on some music and just painting at the end of the day helped relax me, gave me something to do at the end of the night that was a little bit creative while also at the same time giving me something allow me to focus a lot of my energies on. And at the end of the night I felt very relaxed and I'd also made something pretty cool. Now I had many years to practice this, and as I practiced I got better at it. I learned different techniques. We will expand on some of the more advanced techniques in a couple of other podcasts that we'll do. I will. I'm going to bring back the model building streams. I know I've been threatening to do that for a while, but we will be doing that. So you can actually then see me in action, which is actually not going to be me. It'll just be my hands and my arms, and you'll see those a lot. And we'll be building models. I mean, that's what I do, and it's what I enjoy doing. It is one of those things that I really enjoy doing thoroughly. As this is my pod now, since it's just me this week, this is the last week. It's just going to be me, so you're just going to get this screen here. So we'll talk about what's coming and how this format's going to change at the end of the show. So we're going to just jump right into this. Now, my after learning how to do that for years, wasn't until 2012 that I had the opportunity to uh, go in half with a friend on a hobby store, and I owned a hobby store, and I used to, we used to build models. I used to order scale models. I used to order sci-fi models. We used to order Warhammer for customers, and a lot of times the way I had my store set up, you could come in, buy a model, buy the supplies, and then just sit there and start working on them if you. We also had enough room for people to game, and you could play Magic or you could play 40K. We had a lot of people play 40K, so that was kind of fun. I mean, you could only have really the way the storefront was. We only had room for two, you know, basically two matches to go on at the same time. But people had a ton of fun doing it. They had a lot of fun building it, and it was a lot of fun to be able to teach people how to get started on it. And since then, I've only continued, so I've gotten better. Excuse me. There are a lot of techniques out there, but I'm going to teach you, and I'm going to give you the tools you need to get started. If this is something that you've been wanting to do, and a lot of people think, man, I'd love to build models. Maybe you built models as a kid. Maybe you build, maybe you just like to paint miniatures. We're going to cover all of that today. So the first thing I'm going to do is give you the very basic tools that you want. And there are actually only three tools that you will definitely need to get started. One, pair of side cutters. This is a pair of side cutters. You can see it has a flat end, flat side, and you use these or sprue cutters, side cutters. These should run you about between $5 and $7, depending upon the brand and where you buy it from. But don't pay more than $7 for these. It's a ripoff. Um, they basically need them to be flat on the side because you're going to want to make precise cuts when you remove things from the sprues. And that's what you need. That will carry you through miniatures, that will carry you through scale models, that will carry you through sci-fi snap togethers. And we're going to cover the different types of models in a little bit. But again, this is pretty much the most important tool that you need to get started. The second most important tool is going to be something that some of you this will be functional. This is an X-Acto knife or hobby knife. Mine is X-Acto brand. There are a number of other brands out there. This is kind of the industry standard. It has a replaceable razor blade at the top. There's a replaceable razor blade at the top. You can unscrew this. Well, I'm not going to do that now because keyboard and then I'll have a bad day. But, Basically, you can unscrew it, change the blades when you need to, and it's pretty much your one shot deal. You buy the knife, and then you just replace the blades. It's pretty cost effective. Again, don't spend more than $10 on that. If you can get them cheaper, by all means, any brand will work. Really, truthfully. And the last thing, which is I think an important thing, a good pair of tweezers just dedicated to hobbies. You don't want to use the same tweezers like you do your eyebrows with, or maybe when you get a cuticle and you're like, oh, I gotta, no, don't do that. Not sanitary. Also, you want to have something that's dedicated just for this. So get a good pair of tweezers, something that has a good tension to it, and that's really all you need to get started. The next thing that you'll probably want to invest in now, I'm not going to go through holding up a bunch of stuff. You've all seen an emery board or a sand stick. Well, they call them sand sticks at hobby stores, and they charge you $5 more for them than they charge you for them at the grocery store, where you could get them for like $1 or $2. You get a pack of emery boards that you would use to file your nails. Well, it's the same exact thing that you're going to use for filing most of your models. Get them in higher grid if you want. You could probably even get them cheap. You can get them cheap at like a Home Depot or something like that. So those are the two places I recommend buying those. Also, when you're at Home Depot, it's worthwhile to invest in just a multi grit pack of sandpaper, because you'll never know when you're going to need that. You can always cut it down to the size you need. So I highly recommend just picking that. It's very inexpensive to get that. Do not buy that at a hobby store. They will charge you a premium for that. That at least that has been my experience. When we would get them, when I would order those, I would literally, people would say, where are you going to order them from? I'm like, I'm going to ShopRite to buy them in bulk, and then I'm only going to charge you guys like $1 or two more for them, just to cover my costs and to give me a little bit of, margin on that. Because if I had ordered them from any of our hobby suppliers, they would charge me more than I would be able to get them with a coupon in like any place else. So yeah, my honest to God touch. No, I'm not going to touch. Is to, I know what you're talking about. Um, is to honestly, that's really where you want to go to get started. There's really not much else to getting started. Now, the next thing you're gonna probably say is, well, what else do I need? Like, if I'm gonna get models, what's the other thing you need? Glue. I'm gonna be honest. You'll see a lot of people say, a lot of people in the industry will say, well, I get this, get that. No, Gorilla Glue, Crazy Glue, whatever it is, these are the kind of glues that you want to get started with. These are inexpensive and easy to find at your local, pharmacy, grocery store, whatever. You can get them there. I use Gorilla Glue, Gorilla Gel, whatever. It works just the same. I like the gel. It gives me a little bit more flexibility to move things around, and it also fills up a little bit of the gaps at the same time. Now, when you get more advanced into it, you'll want to upgrade to something and say, well, I want to get something. Then you can get something like this. Now, this is something that you can readily find on Amazon for a good price. They usually have two or three different sizes for this. This is made by a company called BSI, and Bob Smith Industries has been making this for many years. It is inexpensive. It's not an expensive brand to get. They have it at your local hobby stores. You'll see this. They'll have their names up on this silver label here, but I just get these from Amazon. Easy to get, easy to use. These give you enough lay-in time between when you put the glue on to when it sets that you have margin for error to move things around. You have some flexibility. On the other side, if you're working exclusively with scale models, most of the time you're going to get something like this, and this is what you want to get. Accept no substitutes. Spend the extra money. Like, it's like probably $5 at maximum for a bottle of Tamiya extra thin cement. But invest in this if you're going to be doing scale modeling, because the difference between using a glue and using a cement is night and day. A cement on a plastic model will thinly melt the cement, and when you put the parts together, when you fit them together, what it will do is it'll melt them both, and they'll have this like fusion point. So it's almost like you're actually welding with plastic, except it's a chemical weld as opposed to the metal weld. It's essentially a very similar principle. You're melting the thing to fuse it together and make it stronger. and it does make it strong. Like I have had very little problems with my scale models after I put them together, like falling apart and having problems after. No, it works very well. That's how you want to do it. Now you can get something for this now if you're going to be working entirely with, like, let's say resin kits, or which is what you want to use this for. You can even work with the miniatures. This is better to work with than, say, a cement, because even if you're working with plastic miniatures, it's kind of hard to melt it, and you could risk damaging the detail. Use this on it. This also serves as a gap filler between it. And the thing is, if you're putting it on and you're waiting too long for it to dry, you can get an activator, a CA activator, a little spray bottle. I would use it in a ventilated area. I would actually use this in a ventilated area. Any of the glues that you're going to use in a ventilated area. Otherwise, you're going to get a contact eye. It's what's going to happen. It's not going to be a great feeling after a while. Um, but I definitely recommend those, because as you're using these different glues and as you're working with these, the CA activators for this make it dry instantly. So if you get something on and it's kind of a fidgety spot, but you got it exactly where you want it, give it a spritz with the CA activator and you're good to go. It locks tight instantly. Do not get your hand on that when it happens, because it will burn. It is a heat. There is a heat reaction that happens with that. I'm just telling you from experience. Now, I also recommend getting a self-healing mat. Now, I'm not going to pull my mat over there because I got stuff on it, but it's a green mat. It's going to have measurements on one side, measurements on the bottom. It's going to have a thing that looks like a graph. They'll have a number of things that are actually useful to have on there when you're cutting things, like if you're going to be working with polystyrene, if you're going to be working with plastic or even wood to an extent, small like balsa bits and things like that. Um, want to get like a self-healing mat, because as you're cutting with your hobby knife or even a little bit of a stronger knife, you'll have a surface that'll actually cut in and immediately seal back over. These are great. They look like mouse pads, but they're not mouse pads. They're a great tool to get. And I mean, even if you're doing something like computer repair and things like that, having a solid surface, clean surface to work on, does wonders, and it looks so much better. And it's easier to clean up. Now, here's something interesting. Now, if you're going to get started with painting, again, I'm not going to move my big tile over here, but you can just for $1. Yes, they are. That's true, Pamela. They also do make pretty good mouse pads. If you want to have the most interesting mouse pad, yes, use a smaller self healing kit pad for that. It's actually kind of a neat thing, and it'll be a good conversation piece for, when you have friends over. If you're on a date, maybe you got a nerdy date. Cool. Um, but like I said, now the other thing I was going to say is, if you're going to paint and you're going to be working with different paints that come out of it, like a squeeze bottle, or as opposed to a little one that comes in, like how Games Workshop comes in. Most of the other, like Vallejo or the other game paints, I'm going to show you an example of that. You want to get a simple piece of tile with a glossed surface, like a glass surface or ceramic surface, that, because you can use that as a very simple ease without whatever. Yeah, use that as a palette. It's easy. It's cheaper than you're gonna pay for it, because I think I got mine for like $1 at a tile store, or they may even give you a sample of it. Just go there, go to Home Depot, whatever, spend $1, get a tile. You'll be good to go. It's much cheaper than spending money, like more money on just a one of those pallets, and it's so much better, because all you have to do afterwards is just take it to the sink, clean it off, you're good to go. And that's it. That's the easiest way to get started with the basics, and that's really the basics. That's really what you need to get started. Now, of course, if you want to get more involved in it, yes, there are other things, but we'll cover those in another. But now, if you want to get started with the modeling, now this is the first thing I remember. Anybody getting started with scale modeling, and if you haven't built a model in a while, I recommend, if you're saying, well, I want to work with scale modeling specifically, get a cheap model. Invest in an inexpensive model. Nothing that you're going to say, look at this. It's like $60, because scale modeling gets expensive. It does. But like, if you've got something there that's like, a good example is the Tamiya Walker Bulldog. It's a $10 kit, $15 kit at most. It's really detailed. It's a big kit. It's a 1/35th scale tank, which means about that big on your desk, and maybe a little bit longer with the barrel. but it's an easy to put together kit. It's a Tamiya kit, which means it's actually made really well. Tamiya does make some of the best scale models as far as vehicles that you can get out there, as far as military vehicles specifically, even cars. They make a lot of good models, but their kits fit together nicely. They're well. They have a lot of detail on it, and it's a very straightforward kit. You can build it inside of a weekend. It's a good kit, but I recommend getting a cheap kit because you're going to make mistakes. And if you make mistakes on a really expensive kit, you're probably not going to want to come back. It's going to be a horrible experience. This way, if you make a mistake and you're like, yeah, it looks like garbage, you want to throw it out or whatever, use it as a test, like when you want to learn how to paint and things like that. Yeah, get that. And then when you practice with that and you've had some time and you feel more comfortable with it, then spend a little bit more money on some other models. And then you'll be able to have more confidence, more experience, and it'll help you building those kits in a much more, they'll look better. You won't make the same mistakes and things. And no, you're not going to make a whole new series of mistakes. Mostly model building is, once you get into it, you go through the learning process, you're pretty good. It's like riding a bike. After that, you pretty much don't forget how it works. Now, as far as it goes with scale kits or like miniature kits, I recommend just getting something like one of these if you want to learn. Now, this is from Reaper Mini. They are really inexpensive kits. They're plastic or sometimes they're resin. They do make metal ones. I recommend just getting one of the plastic ones because all you really have to do is wash them with soap and water uh, to get any residue left on there from the manufacturing process. They have a surface that naturally takes paint without having to do much in the way of priming it. So you throw a quick primer coat on there, let it set, then you're good to go with painting. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Get onto paints and a little bit into kits. And when it comes to doing if you really want to get started with modeling and you're into sci-fi and stuff, pick up a Gundam kit from Bandai. Okay, that they're all snapped together. You don't even need glue. All you really need is maybe a sanding stick. You definitely need a sprue cutters and a tweezer for some of the decals or stickers because they give you stickers too. Um, I recommend those to start with either the Gundam or the Star Wars kits by Bandai. I usually get mine from Gundam Planet, but that's for me because they're 4 towns over. So if I order them, they have good prices. I pay for the normal shipping, which is like less than $3, and I always get it next day because it's 4 towns away. So as long as I order it before they close, I'll get it the next day. So, but like Gundam Planet, there's a lot of good sites out there. Some people like to order from Hobby Japan or Hobby Link. There's a lot of places out there that you can order from. Amazon has a ton of them. But look at the Star Wars kits from Bandai Namco, or not Bandai Namco, but Bandai. You'll find a ton of them. They're all snapped together. They don't really require painting or anything because they're all pre-colored. You can obviously paint them if you want them, and if you're comfortable with that, yeah, absolutely. I highly recommend looking into those because those are really great places to get started with. And if you're a sci-fi fan or an anime fan, I mean, they have a lot of things that you can start with in terms of those, and none of them require like heavy gluing. All of them are pretty much made to be built and displayed or played with. Because the Gundam kits have many points of articulation. Is basically they're essentially you're building an action figure, and the same thing. Well, Star Wars, not really much in the way of action figures, but I mean, if you got the let's say the AT-AT, I mean, let's be honest, that thing has a ridiculous amount of mobility for the legs. You can pose it in many ways, and I think it's one of the best kits that I've ever built. Um, all of their kits look absolutely amazing. They are movie perfect because when they got the license from Lucasfilm, they actually got a hold of all the original models and they went and they took pictures of them. So, for instance, especially with the Imperial Walker, it's very noticeable. When they built all the original prop pieces for the original trilogy, they actually basically did a giant kit bash. So if you look at certain pieces, because this is how detailed they are, I want to comment on this. You will actually see pieces of other model kits like battleships and things that they actually just appropriated and glued on there to give these things, to bring these things to life. So when you're building this, you'll actually, I'll have to link the YouTube video at the description, the other video that explains that as they're building it, because it's something to notice. It's like a little Easter egg that you don't usually get in model building, but they, because it's there, you'll be like, wait, that piece looks really familiar, and then you know why. So there's a little bit of history I can tell you about it from having built that piece and looked at some of the original Star Wars kits and been like, oh wow, okay, that's really cool. That's just how detailed they are. So they are literally, I would say, prop perfect in terms of how they've scaled them down for, for the consumer. The other thing that I want to comment on now, people say, well, what about these kits? Okay, these kits that they have, these starter kits, getting started with, like if you're looking to get into miniature gaming, like Games Workshop or Flames of War, they do have starter kits. They come with a base, like usually about 5 to 8 paints, a brush, and they'll give you a model or two. Or like with Games Workshop, they'll give you like 5 models with it. But like starter models, and they'll give you a little bit of a book to show you how to, basics. I'm gonna go into one of those kits in a minute because I have one here. Not from that, but there's also starter kits that you can get for like just in general. Like if you're just getting started with paints and you want to start, starter kits, I recommend because they give you a basic palette to work with, color palette to work with, and that actually works well with getting started. It helps you get, it gives you a good value for the money that you spend on it. It's very hard to, because this can get expensive if you decide, oh, I'm just going to go out and buy all the colors individually. I highly also don't recommend buying all of Games Workshop paints. I made that mistake years ago. They're great, but just the way the paints are stored in their Games Workshop things, it's very hard to take them out without using like a dropper and a medicine drop, and then you have to put them and mix them that way. Whereas with most of the others, like Vallejo games, you know, uh, Reapers paints, they are in a bottle that naturally has a squeeze, so you could squeeze it onto your tile, mix the colors that you need, you know, amounts, and that makes it work so much better. So you have a lot more, I think, flexibility with those kinds. Now, actually, we're just going to jump into that. That's one of the biggest parts I wanted to jump into and cover in this is this. So I have here a Learn to Paint kit, 4 skills with a Reaper. And this is a Reaper set. The back, here's the front. There we go. Now, this is the bone set. This comes with 3 models. It comes with the paints, and it comes with brushes and a book. Show you guys what's in this. However, also I should say, this is a paint case. So this, and once you get this, will hold a ton of paints. So first of all, this is the first thing that you'll encounter in this. You're going to get a booklet that says Learn to Paint Kit. This has everything you'll need to learn, uh, from base coating to washing to dry brushing. This is actually a very detailed, very good book. It is one of the best things that they give you that others they don't go into as much detail. The fact that they cover washing and dry brushing, those are kind of a little bit more advanced skills. Very good. That's one thing. Let me just find a place. They also send you 2 good quality brushes to start with. You do not need to spend a ton of money on brushes. In fact, do not spend more than $4 per brush at most. Um, Basically, you're just getting a dry brush and a main brush to use. You can get a base coating brush if you so desire, but that is a good value, um, for that. And that comes with it. And then models back, get 3 of their minis, like I showed you before. And then, as you can see here, let me hold. There's a number of paints. Now I had an extra paint in there. Um, does come with 12 paints. I had an extra one from quarter that I stuck in there, but this also serves as a good, storage system for your paints. And these are the kind of paints that you want. Now I'm going to explain a little bit about the paints and the difference between why I say, Games Workshop sometimes have a problem with lately. Um, I don't have a problem with Games Workshop. As a store owner, I did. They make it really impossible for you to make a lot of money as a store, but that's for a different type. Um, that's when you see me always talking about Rudy from Alpha Investments. He's very right about a lot of things. Um, as a former owner of a hobby store, so we can talk about that. But the problem with Games Workshop, Games Workshop contracts out their paint. So if I get red, let's say I get corn red now, they may change that depending upon the manufacturer that they're using in a year or two down the line. They've done it a few times already. So the next time I go to get that red, I'm going to have to really search and see what matches it and hope that it's an exact match for the red that I have now. Whereas Reaper and Vallejo are both independent. So these are all they manufacture. So Reapers manufactures these paints. It's not they contract it out. They manufacture those paints. They're very good paint. In fact, they're about the same price as the Vallejo, which are kind of, I would rate the Vallejo, and many other people would rate the Vallejo as kind of the industry standard and also the best quality on the market that you can get. Um, that's just straight up like what I. These are very similar priced. They're inexpensive. They're under $4 per paint. Good thing they are long lasting. I'd say that little bottle doesn't look like it's going to last very long. Believe me, you can paint quite a few models with that, and let's say close to 50, 60 models, miniatures with even scale models. If you're going to be airbrushing with them, you remember you're going to be diluting the paints a little bit with water to just bring it down, or another thinning agent, and then you're going to be airbrushing that on. You're going to get that airbrushing makes the paints last a very long time. And that's how I would really get started with this. Like one of these kits, and there are many available on Amazon, and they cost just about $31. For that value, what you're getting in that kit is a really phenomenal value. Plus the fact that it's a storage kit, not just a case that they ship it in and then you throw the box out. No, everything in there is completely usable. It's completely valuable. You're getting your money's worth. That's the kind of the best thing about it, and that's one of the things I love about that the most. When I saw that kit, I picked it up primarily for the paints. The bonus was I got 3 models with it that would be useful for me if I was going to run a tabletop campaign, which I always threaten to. But uh, for me, it's just the joy of painting the models. It's relaxing. At the end of the day, it's something that gives me a bit of like my Zen moment, if you would. But it's one of those things that if you're into, you know, at all anything like that, if this is something that you're thinking about, if you're going now, a lot of the people that a lot of you guys that come here, y'all watch. We're all into some of the same things. Like we all either, I don't know how many people have asked me about 40K. I know in my community on Discord, there's a number of people in there that paint 40K in different mini games. So there's a number of people who are into scale modeling. I don't think I know anybody that doesn't like Gundam. At least, if you're not even into the anime, people just like big robots. I mean, like, let's be honest. Big robots are awesome. Unless they're killing us, like in Terminator, in which case they're maybe not so awesome. But, big robots usually pretty cool. So, yeah, I mean, this is kind of one of those things that you would say, well, I'm not into 40K, but wow, those models look really cool. Or, and the nice thing about the 40K models is a lot of people forget that there is a number of RPGs associated with them, so you might just be getting them like I did. I built a couple of 40K models specifically to run Deathwatch, which was their RPG, one of their RPGs. They had a tabletop book for it, tabletop game for. And I built just a ton of different minis over the years that I've spent a lot of time painting them. There are some minis that I've spent like a week start to finish on just to get it right, to make it look like the way I wanted it to. So, and it's just a matter of, like I said, just sitting there, getting started with it, and just letting the hobby, just enjoying the hobby for having fun with it. By the way, color schemes, a lot of people say, well, what about color schemes and things like that? it's your model. Build it for you, paint it how you want it. If you want to make a pink space marine, make a pink space marine. If you want to make a, like a tie-dye, Gundam, because that's just how you roll, do it. Do it, post it, let me see it. I want to see it because I always enjoy seeing something unique. I always enjoy seeing people express themselves in their model builds. Very cool. It's one of the few things that we have like that you can do out there that you say, you combine something that you like with your own personality and give it a whole new life, a whole new meaning. So I one of those things that I really love seeing. And something that I just really, really, really thoroughly enjoy and I wish I had more time to do. Um, just because of work and things, but it's when I get a chance to do it, it's 100% one of those things I just love doing. One of the other things, like I say about that is this: we're going to be doing another one of these. I'm going to go into some of the more advanced techniques. I actually have some video of me painting some of these things, that, over the years, and some of the models themselves that I'm going to actually put up in this area, and we'll show them off as I talk, and we'll talk about techniques and how certain things work. We'll get into some of the more advanced materials that you need to get as the second volume of this, where we talk about like scale modeling in depth and Gundam builds in depth. I'm going to do one of those again, so that'll be in the future. But I just wanted to kind of, run this podcast the way I always do. It's just talk about something that I'm passionate about. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I love doing this. This is my format. So now we're gonna kind of end the podcast here.